So I'm sitting here with Rachel Portman. Rachel, thank you so much for chatting today.
I'm delighted to be here.
So I'm a huge fan of your work. I have been, listening to your music, my entire life, and it's just such an honor to sit here and talk with you. And I'd love to kind of start off simply, talking about your background, going back to your childhood. What were kind of the early memories you had of discovering music, and at what point in your life did it turn more of a hobby and into an actual career?
Um, well, as a kid, I took piano lessons, and I'm the last of five children, and it became clear quite quickly to my mum that I was catching up with my older sisters. And so she found me a really good local piano teacher, and then she started me on the violin and the recorder, and so I had a lot of input from my mother, which was amazing because she wasn't a musician, but she loved music, and so her she sort of like had you know was feeding her passion for music through me really, and yeah, and so I studied music. It was my main thing at school, and I started writing pieces when I was about 13, 14, before I was actually sort of good enough at, really to write out my pieces. So it's sort of quite early, and then that developed, and I was taking it quite seriously by the time I was about 17.
Oh wow.
And so I went to university, and I read music. I went to Oxford, and I did composition there. And while I was there, I made a choice which set me out on a film on sort of like a film career, which was that before that I'd been writing music that was essentially classical or concert music, I guess you call it. And then I was discouraged by my tutor because what I was writing was quite melodic and tuneful. And he said, no, no, you shouldn't be writing music like that. It should be really modern and really intellectual. And and that didn't really interest me. So I started doing lots of theatre, student theatre, and then a bunch of students made a film. This was still while I was at university, so I must have been about 21. And amazingly, this film had a lot of people who've gone on to have careers in film, a lot of them. But notably, it had Hugh Grant in it. He wasn't the main character in it, but he was sort of a sort of one of the main characters in it. And and I thought this is what I'm going to do in my music. This is what I want to do. So
Right.
that was my springboard to getting into writing for the screen, which became then my real focus, for many years. And it sort of since, well, I don't know, in the last I don't know 18 years or 15, 18 years, I've 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 diversified again, and I've written an opera and a musical, and an oratorio, and sort of concert works, and now my album as well.
Yes.
So I've run along parallel tracks for a bit, in
So
all
why,
honesty.
yeah, why? So I guess the question would be, why music? Why not biology or architecture or business or law? Why did music, I
Why
guess,
not?
appeal to you?
Well, who knows? I just, it's, I mean, it's like, why do we all sort of gravitate towards what we love? And I was just, I found I could do it. And also, I mean, I don't know what else I would have done, frankly. No, I would
True.
have, I don't know what I would have. I would have, I mean, there are lots of things I actually would have liked to have been an artist. But you
Mhm.
couldn't study art and music. It was just one or the other, always,
Right. Right.
like most people at most schools. So music. I could do it. I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed writing things. I needed to write. I needed to play music. So it was sort of like a calling as well. I think
Yeah.
where you can't leave something alone. You have to keep going back to the piano. It's a
Yeah.
bit like that.
I know that feeling. Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about kind of the early stages of your career, I know that when maybe you scored your first film or your first projects, were you nervous when you kind of started stepping into that world, or did you have confidence in yourself, and were you like, oh, I got this? Like, what were your kind of emotions going through the early part of your career?
Well, there were different stages. I mean, I remember it was a dream of mine to go
Mm.
to LA and be hired on a studio film. And I'm just trying to think how old I was. I think I was, ooh, I must have been about 31 or 32, and eventually, and I got this break, and it was for a film for Fox called Used People, and I just remember the flight over there being in tears because it was like having wanted this so much. I was like, hang on a minute, I can't do this. I just can't do this. I don't know
Yeah.
what it was that maybe I suddenly lost my nerve, but of course I didn't really lose it. Um, so yeah, in the early days, it seemed all you know terribly really exciting, but I obviously take it incredibly seriously, and
Yeah.
so I think with that, I was nervous. I wanted it to get right, to get it right, and and there was always that thing of coming up with a theme on a film which you have to do, and searching for that theme, and the difficult days when you haven't yet found it. And I had no real experience yet, so
Mm.
I think I was um, quite sort of um, sort of anxious about it all going to be if everything was going to be all right. Everything did turn out all right always, but
Yeah.
my work ethic was so strong. I was so determined to do it, and I hadn't had any training. So even though I knew how to write music, I hadn't been to a film music course. There was barely such a thing. Well, nothing like that existed in England, and I think there was only one place in California where you could go and study film music. So I was doing it and still am purely on instinct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so I mean, and it's very and I I very much learnt my craft by on the jobs that I've done. Um, but as the films got bigger and the stakes got higher, it's scary. You're in charge of a department
Yeah.
thing. You've got I had on that film, Youth People. I had a huge orchestra on it. And then in those days I didn't have an orchestrator, so I did it all myself and I wrote it all myself, which was fine. It was a very complicated orchestration as well. I mean, sort of like very detailed, not complicated, but very very detailed, and the kind of thing that wouldn't happen now. Pictures became locked, and
Yeah.
so they stayed stable, and so you'd have I had I can't remember, I probably had 3 weeks to orchestrate it all. So no, but it was
Wow.
great.
That's amazing. So did you ever live in LA, or did you just would come to work and then come back to the UK?
Yeah, no, I came to LA for quite a lot of projects. I never lived in LA.
Hmm.
I did in New York, working on some films. Not for much more than a year or anything at a time. But
Right.
no, I never lived in LA. I just came to visit. I'd
No,
come and spend like a couple of months here and there and that kind of thing.
and I think that's amazing because I think there's this conception that you have to go to LA, you have to move to LA, you have to relocate to LA to build a career, but you've successfully done that staying, in the UK. Can you talk about maybe if there's any composers out there who feel that they have to be there? And today's, with technology and everything, it's possible, of course, to build a career outside of Los Angeles.
Yes, it is. No, I know there is still is that perception that you go to LA, and I know people who've gone to. I know many people who said, "Right, time to go to LA," and off I go to LA. I don't know what to say really because I've just sort of really sort of found my own path, and
Mm, yeah.
um, you know, there was a period of years when I never got any work in the UK at all on films. No,
Mm,
no British films, which is not the case anymore. And it was just because the whole perception of was what I was out there when in fact I wasn't. I was in London the whole time.
yeah.
Um, and I made the decision not to move to LA. I had a family. I've got three daughters, and I decided that um, uh, that I wanted to bring them up in London or in England anyway, and that I would travel out to LA and work on any film, and if someone wanted me to camp out there for a long time once my children were sort of not movable, um, I had to turn things down. I turned down, but many directors didn't mind me not being there because I'd come out, I'd have the important meetings,
Right.
like I do still now. Come out, you have the meetings, and essentially a composer writes they need to be alone.
Yeah.
Um, so- and and most it's interesting. Most composers, not all by any means, but a lot of them are quite solitary people. They're quite happy to be on their own. So I can't see the point of me being in LA, sort of talking to people and going to this and going to that, because I'd be terrible at it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. All those parties where you're forced to interact with people. We're all
Oh no,
inclusive and reclusive people.
yeah, yeah.
So, if I would love, you have such an amazing and diverse filmography from your career, and if we would spend hours and hours if we went through every single one. So maybe if we just talk in kind of general terms, I'd love to kind of get into your approach a little bit. And I love to start off because I love to ask composers this same question because it always generates such a unique answer. Where does the first note come from for you? When you first sit down and you've been hired on a project, where do you go to find that first kind of spot of inspiration? Do you wait for there's a final cut of the film? Do you like to maybe talk to the director? Do you just go for a walk? I mean, kind of where do you go?
Where does it come from? I don't know. I think it comes from, this is a really strange answer, but I think it comes from forgetting. I
Hmm.
think if you try too hard, nothing comes. You're sort of kind of forcing something. If you're talking about
Right.
the first good note, it comes, it just pops into your head. But as a result of all the work that you've done, as you kind of
Yeah.
you stand outside the film, you stand outside the project. I often have a sense of what key it needs to be in, the main theme.
Hmm.
And I'll look at the film and I'll select bits of the film that really speak to me, that sort of like offer something back. And there may be, say, three or four sort of sections of the film that speak to me where music can breathe, that kind of thing, or something will give me an idea. And so I go from one to the other and hop around
Mm.
until I forget what I'm doing, basically. And it's that whole thing where writing happens for anybody, any kind of writing, I think, where you get inspiration, which is, you can't force it, and it just happens. But it is as a result of all the work that you put in up until that point.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
you know, people have often asked me, what do you do if it's not going well and that kind of thing? And I say, well, I sit and I wait and I stay at the piano and I watch and I stay with it, because it's, obviously you do need breaks, but it's the time that you spend on something that gives the reward in the end, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Do you find the writing process, is it hard? I know some people crank over it, or does it come natural to you? Once you get those ideas, do they just start flowing out of you, or is it more of a process to find them?
Um, Well, once I have my, it's like, once I have the language that the film is going to be in, or the melody, I can write really quickly.
Mm.
I mean, I work really really fast. I write fast, but but only when I've got the essence of what it needs, and then, or so it's a bit like a tree. Once you get the trunk, I can do all the branches
Yeah.
that go off and all the bits of music that need to happen everywhere. And the only uh, impediment to that is the director and the producers, who
Yes.
say, "Well, I'm not quite sure about that," or we like you to sort of do more as this happens or that, and then that's, could drive me crazy,
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
or you're like, you craft something and then it's like, no, and how many ways can you cut a piece of cloth? Well, the answer, as many film composers know, is hundreds.
Yeah. So, I
So
mean, yeah. Speaking of directors, I mean, you've worked with such a variety of different directors over your career. If you could boil down and create your perfect director, like what are some characteristics that you as a composer love to see in a director, what like traits or personalities that you make your job easier?
okay, so part of that would be, part of the perfect director would definitely be Jonathan Demme,
Mm,
who is sadly no longer here.
yeah.
Um, uh, and that would be because he was so exciting to work with, and he was he was always reaching for something extraordinary and different, and he'd try this, try that. He'd make me go out on a limb that I would normally go, and was a wonderful man. So he would be part of it. There's someone I worked with a couple of times, maybe three times, called Lena Scherfig, who's a Danish director. She did One Day, and more recently Their Finest. I worked with her on that, and I like working with her because she's really intelligent about music, and and she pushes me again, pushes me to do my best.
Yeah.
Um, there's several people. I mean, so she would be ideal. Oh gosh, um, yeah. I mean, it was fantastic working with Roman Polanski. Again, he's extremely knowledgeable and confident in using music. And so he's very happy for me to say, well, this is what piano's going to be like. I can play it to him on the piano. He says, fine. I'm not worried about how you're going to orchestrate it. I know you'll know. Whereas, that some directors are very unconfident. They have to have, uh, they can't articulate what it is that they want, and so
Yeah.
they have to hear it 10 different ways or whatever. So I've worked with so many directors. Lassie Hallström's also great. Obviously Doug McGrath, who I did
Yes,
Emma
Doug.
with, other films as well. He's delightful to work with. He's hugely funny, and he really likes what I write, but he also pushes me to he taught me about writing music for comedy. So it's great, lots of different ones. If they could all be mushed up into one,
Yeah.
that would be great.
So speaking of Doug, and yeah, you've built a really great relationship with him, of course, from Emma and onward. How has that relationship changed over the course of the few films you've done? Does it get easier, or does it get maybe even harder to work with someone because maybe he knows all your tricks and stuff, and he goes, oh, Rachel, I know what you're doing here. No, go push this way or something.
Well, he never gives me that impression that he
That's
knows,
good.
or I mean, I think he genuinely likes the way I might respond to what he's doing. I think the reason our relationship has been good is because um, we're kind of in tune with each other, and when you have a relationship like that with a director, it's fantastic because you know uh, I wouldn't have said this however many years ago it was, but I feel now that we're kind of friends because we're sort of
Yeah.
almost sort of an age so we have we have an easy relationship now, so no, it's good.
Absolutely. So you mentioned how he kind of taught you maybe about scoring comedies. For different genres of film, do you have a different approach? Like, is a drama a different approach to comedy than you? I mean, does it
Yes,
require
no, no,
yeah.
definitely. Well, I mean, I'm doing a comedy at the moment, and it's it's a completely different thing to doing a drama. Um, it's it's a lot about tempo and rhythm with comedy, and also comic beats. Whereas drama, I tend to be it tends to be much broader. You have much sort of bigger, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, every film is different, but
Right.
the approach is completely different for the two
Yeah.
of them. And then comedy needs is very specific, and
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of generic comedy music and music that tells the audience, "Hey, this is funny," you know.
Right.
And there is a certain kind of music that you do see quite a lot, or you hear quite a lot, which is like, yeah, everyone, you're going to enjoy this. And whilst it's also important to to write music that says yes, you can enjoy it, that shouldn't be the thing that to me it stands out a mile.
Right.
Then I'm super aware of music in film.
Yeah. I mean, comedy just seems very it's so meticulously crafted, and music can very much get in the way because it's a lot of performance editing, and then timing, and comedy is subjective too, so it's very difficult to make something land. So I can
Mm,
I don't envy composers who have to find a way to make that work. It seems like such a huge challenge. um,
definitely.
so for writing overall, is writing ever autobiographical for you? And when I say that, I mean like when you're say you have to tap into a certain emotion, whether it's like maybe a death scene or a joyful scene. Do you ever reach back into moments of your life and go, "Well, I experienced something like this. I know the emotional state," or do you just simply look at the film and kind of become an actor yourself and just try to play the part?
I mean, I don't think I ever think, oh gosh, this reminds me of something that happened in my life, and
Hmm.
therefore this is the music for it. But I think, um, writing music that is basically storytelling music, which is what film music is.
Right.
You are you're always drawing on your own emotions and what you've come across in life. And I'm really interested in the whole the art of attuning to a particular scene so that you can actually write the music for it. And it's an art, and it's also, it's something that's, yeah. I mean, you have to feel something in order
Yeah.
to be able to rate it. You've got to be able to, to respond and actually resonate with it, and then something comes out of it. So it's a sort of it's a kind of meeting between you, the writer, and the material. That would be my answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of we were talking about directors a little bit and how they can, steer and make your work go in different directions. But when it comes down to it, when you have to sit down with a director for the first time and present your first piece of music, is that still nerve-wracking for you? Do you still feel, is it a vulnerable experience to have to show somebody and then immediately either be rejected or critiqued, in a sense like that?
Oh, yes, I mean it is it's an offering of what you're giving them. It's an offering of it's an artistic offering. So yeah,
Yeah,
you do feel worried. Um, you're hoping it's going to go all right, and they have final say. You
right,
can't say I'm sorry, but I'm not going to change that. I mean that's another thing we have to do as film composers is we have to be good collaborators,
yeah.
um, and easygoing. And if something isn't quite right, well then we go back to the drawing board and we try again.
Absolutely. So a big film, of course, of your career was Emma, and which was a big moment in your career. And not only did you form a great relationship with Doug McGrath, but you also won an Oscar, for the score, which of course you were the first female composer to ever win an Oscar. But going back and looking at Emma, what were your memories of working on that film, and how do you look back at it now?
Well, it's interesting. The Academy did a screening of it on the big screen. They've been doing sort of screening Oscar-winning scores with films, and so I went along to it, and it's sort of so many years since I'd seen it, and I heard it in really fantastic sound
Hmm.
speakers, in this really good cinema, and it was so wonderful to see it again, and and I was really happy with what I'd done on it actually, because it seemed so long ago before, and I'm so familiar with the theme, and I sort of kind of I'm the kind of person that sort of kind of dismisses stuff that I've done in the past, but actually, I was sort of proud of it because I thought it sort of it worked, and my experience of working on it was that I had just had my first kid, and she was probably, yeah, she was about 5 or 6 months old, I think. And Doug McGrath had asked me to score it, and I said no because I thought I'd just stay with her. But I found it really, really difficult not writing music, and so then I went back to him and said, yes, I will do it. And I remember I had I had this really, really tiny baby, and I had to go to work, and then I had to keep breaking to feed her and that kind of thing. So it was delightful, and but it was quite hard because I was a young mother, and I had really, really baby.
Yeah.
Um,
And that,
so
and that's
yeah.
something nobody really talks about is that, composers have to juggle family life, personal life, and you have the longest working hours of any profession. Has that gotten easier throughout the years? Have you learned to manage time better as you got deeper
Yeah,
into your career?
no. I mean, obviously, it's much easier now.
Oh yeah, of
they're
course, they're
they're
grown up.
they're grown, so it's fine. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's it is a really demanding job
Hmm.
working on a film. It's there are often picture cuts. It's sort of it's guaranteed that there are going to be pushes and like real sort of like pressure, and it's really how you handle it. And I I'm someone who's sort of overly, well, not overly, but I always want to be super organized. So I'm always making schedules and making sure I've got enough time to do this, and I sort of spread it out so that I know that I'm going to be okay. Nothing is worse than not being ready. I've
Right.
never had that actually. So that's stressful. So I'll just do longer hours.
Going back to your Oscar win, I do want to point out, how significant that was for being the first, a female composer winning an Oscar. And of course, the next year, Anne Dudley took one home. But then we had over a 2 decade drought till Hildur Guðnadóttir just, recently won for Joker. And of course, oh yeah, it's a beautiful score, and she's such a lovely person. I love Hildur. But just looking at it's been such a male centric industry for its entire existence. And then you've been in this, you're a veteran composer in this industry. I mean, how has it changed, I guess, for female composers from when you started till now? And are we on the right track? Or is progress being made?
Um, you know, I'm not an expert on what's exactly happening. I mean, I think representation isn't good still.
Yeah,
I do know that a lot of very fine female composers are out there and I know that a lot of the graduate film composition training programs attract a lot of female composers who are really, really good. And I think, more and more, the more and more they, sort of press at the wall, it's going to fall down.
yeah,
And more people are getting breaks. And of course, this year was great, having another win. So, I think it has to get better. It's going to get better. It can't not get better. It's just so slow.
very.
It's extraordinarily slow.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think I'm an optimist, and I think I think all the signs are that it's changing.
yeah. I mean, I think it is. I agree with you. It's one of it's. I see changes, but it's still very slow. I think the representation, the numbers are still very low. But
Yeah,
to see Hildur take the stage and after a 20-year drought, and that it was
really
refreshing.
good.
Yeah.
Really, really. Yeah.
So I want to move to your solo album, Ask the River, which is just a beautiful, beautiful project and a beautiful album. And I listened to it from start to finish. And I mean, it took me into my past, and I was reflecting on my childhood. I was reflecting on my. It just took me my mind. I was happy. I cried. I know it was heartwarming. It felt nurturing. Talk to me about your inspiration for this album and where did it come from?
Oh well, gosh, it's the inspiration. Well, is really listening to the natural world,
Mm,
wanting to be in it. It's not the album isn't really a description of the natural world. It's more about the essence of actually being in it. So what it's actually like to sort of sit in amongst the branches of a tree and look up at the leaves and that kind of thing. It's sort of a response, but I'm very interested in environmental issues and
mm,
the natural world, and um, you know I don't feel that we're separate from it, and I think that we have become very separate as a world. We live in cities, so many of us, uh, and we it's clear that we've lost our connection to nature. Not everybody, obviously, but and so this was very much. It's not. I'm not doing anything. I'm not preaching with it at all. But
right.
it's a for me it's a response and to that question and wanting to listen to the earth and what it wants to say to us. So what do they want to say? What do the trees want to say? What and so it's an invitation to be reflective, I guess, on the world that we live in,
Yeah.
that we live and breathe with, that we're part of. So it's that, and it sort of started, and it started off, and then I was asked to do an album, and sort of like when I had a sort of bunch of about six pieces, and then there was I sort of kind of meandered my way through, what felt like until it was a body of work of pieces that I thought, no, it's there now, it's there. But I was interested in, I was interested in um, letting as it were, nature sort of flow through me in 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 my writing. It's very hard to talk about um,
Yeah,
writing writing something like this album off the river because it's not a film, it doesn't have a plot, and it's really hard to talk about music. It's 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 because it's for me it's instinctive. It's it's uh, it's it's they're not words. It's hard to put into words.
absolutely.
So
That's what music is there for. What you can't
yeah,
say in
exactly.
words.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
but I mean, it must have been freeing to not have a picture to lock to, or a director giving you notes, producer giving you notes. Was it a freeing experience?
Yes, it was. It was very freeing. It was freeing. I was my own author completely entirely. It was up to me if, I wanted to change something or it was up to me. I was my own barometer of, of what I was doing. I would say it's quite hard. Um, it's hard to get things from yourself utterly.
Yeah,
Um, or it's a different thing altogether. Um, uh, Certainly to sort of settle on pieces and thinking, oh no, this is where it's going. And so I found myself lost a few times, but I was lost on films, frankly, a few times here and there too. So it's the
right.
same thing. I mean, it's different. It's different. It's very liberating. I have to say that it really is. It's very liberating because I played on it. I I worked with fantastic cellist called Caroline Dale and a wonderful violinist called Cleo Gould. Who came and played with me on a couple of few pieces, which was great. And it was it was and is really exciting to feel that it's entirely mine.
Yeah,
Obviously their bits were theirs, and they also elevated, with their through their performance, what they gave to the pieces was incredible. But it's lovely. It's lovely to have done it.
how long did it take you from start to finish?
It took me about a year.
A year?
I had it maybe maybe a year and a couple of pieces that might have been outside that by a month or two.
Mm,
And during that time I did do a couple other projects,
right.
obviously, sort of fit in and stuff. So, but that was my main focus.
But
Good.
it must be so rewarding though to look back at it and just have like that finished piece, right
It
there.
is. It is. It's great.
Well, congratulations! It's such a beautiful piece of work and accomplishment, and a beautiful album experience. I mean, it's just the way it flows.
Thank you so much. Thank
Uh,
you.
so I do like to. I want to close off. I love asking this question. It's just a fun question. But if you could pick any other profession on a film that you could try out for one movie, whether it's a set designer or a cinematographer, director, is there anything that you'd maybe like give a crack at? Anything that intrigues you?
Well, I know I'd be a terrible actor. I know I would be. So that fills me with dread and fear. What would I like? Ooh, camera person would be
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Oh,
I'd do that. I
that's a
think
good
I would.
answer.
Yeah.
It's a great answer. Well, I see that maybe before we go, I see you're sitting by your piano here. Would you mind sharing some things with us?
No, I'm really happy to. I'd be happy to. I'll play you a piece from Off the River. This piece is called A Gift.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, it's one of the. Yeah, I'll play it to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Hope you can. Ah, is that okay? Can you see? Okay.
Yeah, it looks perfect.
Okay, good. All right. Great. Great.
Wow. So
Thank you.
beautiful.
Very much. Thank you.
Wow.
Excuse my piano. It's been in lockdown for a long time. It needs a bit of a tune.
Oh, it sounded good to me. So,
Good.
Rachel, thank you so much for chatting today. It's been such a pleasure to pick your brain and hear your side of your stories and everything. So, thank you so much for your time.
No, not at all. It's been a real pleasure. Lovely talking to you.